Welcome to the Gnostic Rebellion. Today we're speaking with Dr. Joshua Pritikin, author of a wonderfully interesting book that deals with a core theme here at the Gnostic Rebellion and the Gnostic book that deals with I'm sorry, and the Gnostic Church of Light. Religion Unburdened by Belief is the name of the book. We'll introduce him in a moment, but you'll find immediately below this video, in the description, you'll find a link for our donation button at uh, PayPal, and this program supports the Gnostic Church of Light. It's an historic building, and we invite you to become part of our historic congregation. We're the first fully owned and operating Gnostic church on the continents of the Americas, and your donations are tax deductible. While you do that, we'll extend this blessing. May wisdom and divine providence increase the unique genius of our congregation and bring us to health, wealth, and increase of days. Okay. Having earned his PhD in psychometrics in quantitative psychology from the University of Virginia, Dr. Joshua Pritikin, during his academic career, contributed to 10 peer-reviewed publications and now maintains a practice in White City, Oregon. He runs Estrella Counseling and holds a Level 3 certification with the IFS Institute, which perhaps we'll talk about a little bit later. But it is his book, Religion Unburdened by Belief, that brings us here today. I'm going to create this scenario. It's time to do the prayer. And instead of allowing people into the prayers that they know, you have them learn a new prayer.
Okay.
Which leads me to this question. In that experience, that prayer mode that is being directed, it's simply a matter of not bucking up and saying, your prayer sucks, we're not using it. It's a matter of getting everybody into a prayer about the work that they're doing. Not asking for a boon, not praising some super powerful guy that can fuck me in the ass if I'm, not a nice boy. Because no matter how good you make God, his shadow gets even deeper. So people got to figure that out. So you design a prayer that goes to the essence of the work.
Okay.
Tell me, what is the essence of this work? Can you express that on an essential level? Really going to the root of it.
Um, you're putting me on the spot here.
Yes,
like
I'm sorry. I'm just asking you to be creative. There is expressive prayer used in everyday speech.
Okay.
So you're not limited to whatever. You can use everyday speech. Certainly, if you're
Like
running out the door to
let's
make a delivery, I might call out to you, be back on time.
or yeah, I hope for the best.
Yeah, I hope for the best.
Okay.
Those are very practical prayers.
Sure.
Just like there's very practical beliefs. I know if I lend my best buddy $50, he's going to pay me back.
Sure.
I know the sun's going to rise tomorrow. I've had
Yep.
experience of both things. And so this is very practical, everyday belief.
Okay.
Other things become real to us when we go through this process.
Um, uh, was that like a transition to a new topic, or like I didn't quite
No.
follow you?
In that other things become real for us as we go through that process. We have other things to look at. I'm not looking at the sun. I'm not looking at the trustworthiness of my buddy. I'm looking at things about me. I've had, a deeply dramatic or not so dramatic, or I've had, a different kind, four different kinds of little films get played. I saw everybody in bubbles. Um, and so there's something essential to that going through the whole experience, not being caught up in the ingestion and that experience, but moving to the prayer. Where are you going?
Um,
I
so,
just, I'll give you an example that I would come up with, you know what I'm saying?
okay.
And you can let everyone do their own words. I ingested these substances that is plain. I've been through this, and, I discovered that I've had this deep issue for a long time. And I was really able, and I might describe that. I don't want to create an example. And I found a way through that to understand it. And I was able to talk to the hurt that other me had, um, and that leads me to this moment where I am better than I was before.
Okay.
A marvelous prayer gets to the essence of what I experienced.
Yeah, you would classify that as a prayer? Is that what you're
Yeah.
suggesting?
Well, because remember, I've ruled out asking for boons. Dear
Hmm.
God, help me into heaven. Shoot my boss, I need a raise. You know what I'm saying? Shoot my wife, I need a new one.
Yeah,
Um, uh, all these things that people pray for.
right.
Alan Watts has a wonderful talk where he says, imagine your God uh, on that altar flying above the earth.
Sure.
Angels are flying around you all day long, going, you're marvelous, you're wonderful, you're marvelous, you're wonderful. And you look down, and there's 8 billion people looking up at you, going, dear God, I could use a new pair of shoes. And please, really, shoot my wife. I meant it. Um, what would you do if you were that guy? He asks. Would you not just take your foot and just stomp on all those ants down there? Um, Asking for boons is a ridiculous thing. I mean, its assertion in a belief structure says that God's plan needs to be altered, or you're asking for God to alter his plan, especially for you.
Okay. I mean, you can personally refrain from asking for boons, but I'm not sure that I would be criticizing people who do pray for things to happen, like because um, like it seems to have emotional benefits for them.
So, um, the Jew gets up in the morning and thanks God that God made him a man and not a woman. How do you think that amplifies into a culture? The same thing is going on in the Islamic world, and it used to go on in Christendom. We've had liberation now, right? But the same thing is happening in the Islamic world, and people are holding tight to those really 15th century morals. And it's been conditioned down from generation to generation. And yet, if you come out and tell people that, if you come out and tell people that they're deeply imbued inside of this, horrific sociological structure because of a superstitious something or other, they're gonna they're just gonna tell you that you're preaching a whole lot of hogwash. It
Right.
doesn't matter how true it is, and certainly it would be pretentious to tell them that. So you got other issues there with yourself. But if you just gave them a prayer that was outside of that, a prayer maybe especially designed for the ceremony, or contingent on something else that's important. And it becomes a chance to ruminate over it so that prayer becomes rumination, because now you're no longer drawing a line between you and God. You're looking within for God. You don't have to tell them their religion is wrong. You don't even have to care what their religion is. You know, just give them a chance to look at light, and they either will or they won't.
Uh, okay. I mean, maybe it's worth trying. I'm
Well,
not sure how
that's
that
what I
would work.
said. Yeah, because like I want to move on to sacred celebration and
Okay.
something that you start out with the idea of foreplay.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So just briefly, like it's not a large part of the book. It's just like a couple pages, but I point out that Christianity, to largely and to some extent, the uh, Muslim traditions have tended to separate celebration and religious practice, so that the only acceptable form of religious practice is somber, um, and calling that out as like maybe it doesn't have to be that way.
You get me started on the wrong avenue there. You're very right. Keep going. Um, we have lost sacred celebration with the end of the uh, classical era,
Yeah,
when the last cult finally died. What died with them was a whole different approach. Because remember, first of all, the gods were not otherworldly. They lived on top of a mountain. They were part of this world.
sure.
So it's a whole different relationship to them going on, and a perspective I don't think Christianity has taken the time to contemplate properly. They just call it superstition. Um, and
Or
certainly when we look at like
or paganism. They might call it paganism and dismiss it.
well, just to give it a derogatory word, right?
Yeah.
They'll call it paganism. And not that paganism in itself, people call themselves pagans, but for them, that would be derogatory. Let me get my doggy up here. Come over here. You come. You want me to take you this way? How can I take you this way? You make me work so hard. Um, this is my pretty doggy. He won't kiss me. She doesn't give me kisses unless I force them out. So if we look at these classical rituals like Dionysian festivals,
Yeah.
um, uh, which by Christian standards was a whole lot of harlotry,
Yeah.
right? Um, but we had a breakdown, a dissolution of the ego in the ceremony. Everybody was a part of it, right? Probably psychedelic substances were ingested or drunk,
Well,
along with alcohol. Hmm?
yeah, it's probably not just alcohol. I mean, the mysteries of Eleusis would suggest that there were real psychedelics involved.
Yes, I think so, and I think the early church, the Eucharist was psychedelic, um, so that you
Are,
you felt the spirit,
and
right?
PJ, are you aware of this recent book by Matthew Stahl?
I don't
He's
think so.
he's like a amateur chemist. I no, I'll share a link to a page I have on it. But he
Please,
thinks
let me
he
look
has
at
the
it.
recipe for the Indian soma and the Greek kaikion, and like it's pretty
I
simple.
would be interested in both of those recipes because I don't have any information on either, really. Some I
Okay.
have looked into, and there's a lot of dead roads just because everybody's got their own take on it, and of course everybody's take is the correct take.
Well,
Uh,
and I'm not sure that. there's a lot of proposals where the recipe actually produces a psychedelic like today, like that
Yeah, none of that exists in all of that, and it has to be. It's obviously psychedelic. You know,
well,
if you
Matthew
don't
Stahl has a
fuse.
proposal.
Well, again, to see society coming back to life through this. I mean, let's look at the world today. You got all this bullshit advertising that gets you onto the website that you'll find a woman or a man or whatever, while everybody's so busy tearing their genders apart and they're not communicating with each other. They're not talking back and forth. They're not really living. I watch a party of 8-year-olds and they're all on their cell phones texting each other.
Hmm.
Social development has been lost in the way that we understand it. And I think it's the inevitable part of a dead road. When Christianity took out ecstatic religious experience, and ecstasy could be caused by anything. It doesn't have to be psychedelic, but it sure kind of works on everybody. You don't have to turn around and get Trailer Joe to come out and not experience it. Say, I don't know what you're talking about, man.
Yeah, psychedelics are uh, have very consistent effects compared to something like drum circles or meditation or um, yeah, the like you can like breath work can be very profound, but it can also be not profound. Uh,
Yeah,
yeah,
I've had both on that. Yeah, and thinking of drum circles, I'm thinking of the song that they're singing at the tea ceremony because it's kind of the same thing. And,
sure.
and imagine even further, the drum circles are happening at night at the campsite,
Yeah.
and you've been doing all this other stuff all day long. So you're now a little twisted, a little exhausted. My doggie has decided to take the camera for herself. She's such a show off, I say. Yes. It's your fault you got that. Um, so I think there's an interesting experience when you bring somebody to the edge of exhaustion. The drums now are beating. Maybe you're a drummer, maybe you're just chanting with the crowd, maybe you're dancing in the middle of the drums.
Hmm.
But all of that, everybody's going at it. It's a really strong ceremony and enjoyable for all. Um, I think can generate a really wonderful experience. I'm going to have to put you down. You're too interested in my desk. You've got to go down. Don't catch my legs. You're going this way. Okay. Sorry, sweetie phone. I'll pet her. Hopefully that'll help. Um, so here you are, in a really Aboriginal tribal moment. You're really kind of low down on the brainstem,
Yeah,
and you might even be having some sort of prophetic experience, right? Um,
sure. Oh yeah, for
and
sure.
people
Like,
have described that.
I mean, I think there's plenty of reports of people uh, that that have had extraordinary experiences just in tribal settings. Having music around a campfire with drums or something. Yeah.
Well, there's still something to that, mystically, right? You're
Yeah.
out in the woods, there's a campfire, you got all those smells and things, which I think go deep in our memory. They're
Yeah.
really
Probably.
part
Yeah.
of the machinery of our mind, whether you call that the collective unconscious or what have you, or you're just low on the brainstem and you're, taking all these, shall we say, guttural responses. You know,
Hmm.
and that becomes mystical. I mean, it could become dangerous because you're in a very low place, right? And you could steer a crowd to do terrible things with that. but it could be a real spiritual experience. I've been there,
Sure.
so we get again a dissolution of the ego. I stop worrying about how I look if I'm dancing or how I sound if I'm singing. Am I in rhythm if I'm drumming? If I'm just standing on the side and clapping my hands and singing? I have all that to be self-conscious of, and I'm dropping all that. So instead of calling it the ego, let's call it the mask, right? Because what is really truly my ego is my self-identification, and there's nothing I want to dissolve in that, at least not at this point. But I am dissolving that mask, that outer ego, right?
Okay.
Um, and so this has now become foreplay, right? Um, we've gone through the initial stages till we get to that ego dissolution.
Okay. So what you're using the word foreplay in kind of like a metaphorical sense.
Kind of in a metaphorical sense, but let's hook it together. Um,
Okay.
a man and a woman engage in foreplay. That involves various things, which can start with, lighting a cigarette in the restaurant. You know what I'm saying? Well, you
Sure.
can't do that. But there are things that can make an evening very compelling. And as you get back to the physical labor of it, there could be a whole ceremony in disrobing, preparing, before you even begin to whatever, fondle, caress, and engage in all of this. You haven't really moved into the sexual act yet. You've been all at foreplay, bringing each other to this same peak moment that it lets you engage further at a higher level.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm playing around with your ideas of foreplay,
Yeah.
but we have examined foreplay in how we've put our experience of prayer, etc., together. We've been going through that, right? Am I
Okay.
being
And
here?
then my book touches on tantric Buddhist practices that involve sex and Taoist practices that involve sex. Um, just very briefly, I touch on those. Is
Yeah,
that where we're going? Yeah.
yeah. Let's do it.
Okay.
Let's make sense of this to people. In a good way.
Um, okay, but um, and I guess the reason I don't spend more time on the tantric and Buddhist practices is like if you look at them through the lens of the Varela-Schwartz model, they don't really it doesn't really line up. Like um, they're not restricted. There's not like a clear cut way that um, there's restrictions on how you're supposed to be which perspective you're supposed to be in at any given moment.
There's restrictions on which perspective you're supposed to be in at any given moment.
Right.
I don't understand that at all. That's just right over my head.
Okay, so remember the Varela-Schwartz model. There's attention outside, attention inside. When the attention is outside, you could be like speaking of your own experience, like self-report. You could be studying someone else's experience. That's like a second person perspective, or it could be like a scientific third person perspective where you're um, just observing the facts
So
that are
both your
in.
research, what you learn about it, and what you speak about it is all external.
Um, so I was trying to give an example of third person outward perspective.
Well, yeah, you're getting, in a third person perspective, you're getting something external. You're taking in something from the world,
Yeah.
and it's influencing your thought, and that's all external.
Yeah, like external, um, and like a close to objective, like reasonably objective. And then switching to the inward perspectives, there's being with a part blended or unblended, and also the experience of self-like qualities, qualities of self.
Perception of the self, self-worth, that kind of thing. Um,
Well, not um, I'm not sure about self-worth, like self-worth in the sense of like feeling the beauty of existence, like that to me that's like what I mean by self-worth is the
I do too. Yeah, I agree.
okay, something that's like innate, like we're not it's not like the number in my bank account. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Yes, unless of course you are somebody who is after power. And there's petty power mongers and larger than petty power mongers. But a guy that owns, three apartment buildings, he's going to act in a certain way because he owns those three apartment buildings and they produce something for him, right?
Okay, but
And he
hold
needs
on,
for the
we're,
little
we're
sectors of the
really
world
going
that
off
have
on
it.
a I feel
Huh?
like you're going off on a tangent here because I'm just trying to give examples of the different classifications that the Varela-Schwartz model offers. And so I was
Oh, okay. Strict classification, because I was kind of breaking that one classification up a little bit. Was it a
right, the
universal point? That's what I was after.
yeah, well we uh, one of us used the language self-worth, and then we were trying to define that, and that's how we got off on the tangent.
Um, yeah, I think that was all about self-worth, though. So there is no if there is no self, there is no transcendence. Because to transcend the self, you have to have self to transcend it.
Yeah, so an inward first-person perspective is that self-experience where you have maybe have uh, the joy of beingness, or the a beauty, a sense of beauty. Those kinds of emotions or compassion are self qualities,
Beauty is
qualities of the self.
aesthetics. That's even deeper than emotion. And those aesthetics
Hmm.
are very, very important. The
Okay,
beauty being at the center, the height of it, if you want to say.
sure,
Um, and when you get to that place of beauty, now your beauty and my beauty are two different beauties.
sure.
Um, right? Because you're after one thing, I'm after another. But when somebody comes to a point in their life where they recognize what they're after, when
Yeah, I
say
mean that's
the carpenter is not blending. You know what I'm saying? When you're saying, I have built this, outer world as a carpenter, and I have a successful business and a house and a wife and the kids and a car and a garage, blah, blah, blah. Um, and so that I am is not a blending, but it is in the outer world.
okay. What was that example for? What point are you trying to make?
Well, I'm trying to not talk about myself, damn it. Um, Somebody comes to a place where they've discovered the central core the that brings meaning to their life. It could be fixing old chairs. It could be helping school kids cross the street. They don't have to be highfalutin things.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
No, that's that I agree that that sense of direction and meaning, or meaning and direction, would be self qualities as well. So
yeah.
I like how you're defining self qualities. I like your examples, but to bring you back to the sexual practices. So
Okay.
my sense is the tantra and the what is it? The Taoist practices, they don't they're not constrained in the Varela-Schwartz model. They're just you can just do whatever. Um, but this other practice I identify in my book, orgasmic meditation, is very constrained. And here's what I mean. So the this and I have this in Figure 17. Um, and there's two different roles here. One role is the strokee, that's someone with a clitoris, and the stroker would be someone with the finger. And so it's the practice has a very narrow definition. There isn't a lot of improvisation that happens. And
I think I think it has great value in it being exploratory. And, a
sure.
working couple getting to know each other's body,
Hmm.
I think is very, very important because when you can get to that physical trust with another person, again,
Hmm.
we're taking off another mask, and
Right.
you are working with your gut, not your brain. You're learning how to use that other brain in your stomach.
Okay. Right. But these two roles have very specific profiles in the Varela-Schwartz model. So for the strokee, um, they're asked to let's see, what is it? So uh, to, to allow themselves to expand into the emotions of self, the emotions of beauty that are may have sexual overtones or not, and also to they're welcome to self-report, to express themselves vocally, um, and uh, they're also um, permitted to like make requests of the stroker, like slow down or speed up or whatever it is, more pressure, less
Learning each
pressure.
other's body, yeah, learning each other's
Yeah,
bodies.
and but uh, during this experience, like there's no reason to like worry about outward third person perspective. I'm talking about the strokee's role, and
Right.
it would also be inappropriate to be blended with a part or to even to be unblended with a part. Like really, the strokee's experience should be as much in her body as possible, and not mentally
In his
engaged,
head, I'm doing a
right?
great job. Oh, I'm proud. Wait till I tell the guys at work. Um, uh, no, your mind should be entirely on her because that's what's going on.
Yeah, so
And
the strokey should be just totally absorbed in the beauty of the experience and not, mentally worrying about parts.
yes,
Yeah.
so that's concentration,
Yeah.
intense mindfulness, right?
Yes. 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 Um, and so because the orgasmic meditation practice is very narrowly defined, like that's all that happens is the strokey, like the stroker is stroking the strokey, and that's like the whole thing. There's nothing else that happens if you're following orgasm. There's
Well,
no
it's
sexual.
it's an excellent beginner tantric exercise.
Okay. Yeah.
Sexual chanting. I think it's great, and I think, as they learn to bring each other to orgasm, that's where the emotions get really deep, and they learn about themselves and each other, right? Um, at that point of orgasm, le petit mort, the little death. It's where it's a replica of the death experience. And it's considered a replica. I should say it that way. It's a dissolution of the boundary of the cell,
Yeah.
right?
That tracks for me.
Say that again.
That I said that tracks for me. Like it
Okay, that
resonates. Yeah,
tracks
I
for you.
agree.
Anything to add to it?
Well, we could shift to talking about death, or I guess
That's what my next note
uh,
is.
Okay, yeah, why don't we do that? And so I didn't go through the Varela-Schwartz model for the stroker, but it's basically the same. You can look it up. It's on page 275. So next.
By the book.
Yeah,
Okay, so death, uh, the ultimate ego dissolution. The outer mask
yeah,
completely fades away. You lose all control over your body. You're technically not attached to it anymore. Don't ask certain Tibetan monks, but technically you're not attached to it. Um, and this is the great mystery that's supposedly revealed on a small level with the orgasm, which you could say turns a person inside out, right?
yeah. I like that. Yeah.
So as that begins to happen, and we get to death, we get to the overriding number one fear of everybody on planet Earth. In unison, everybody is afraid of death. A couple of suicidal maniacs, but that's about it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
And death brings fear. The thought of death, I should say. You'll never feel yourself die, right? You practice for it every single night. You go to sleep, and that's it. Um,
maybe.
yeah,
But yeah, like you, yeah,
but I think when we get to the fear, we're back to the social conditioning. There's a danger in there. Um,
there is a danger.
you know, and so you hook on to, it's the atheist all his life who's, you know, converting on his deathbed. It's
Mhm.
the atheists in the foxhole. There's no atheists in foxhole, right?
Or just like obsession with living forever, like all these like like Brian Johnson, all these longevity schemes, like he's investing so much money in in trying to live like I want to live forever too, but like I don't know how much should we invest in trying to uh actually actually do that. I don't know.
Um, I think that's just a testament to the fear of death, right?
It
How
is,
far
yeah.
people will go when once they have the wealth to try to face this fear.
Hmm. And so uh I mean this fear is something that everyone is challenged by, but there's a way to answer this challenge. Like that's kind of the good news. I mean, that my book isn't the first to recognize this by a long shot, that suggesting that uh, like that you may have the an intuition through orgasm that there's a way to confront death, but psychedelics are probably even more effective way. Uh, and,
But
and
then
when you
we're still left with the idea of death. So what can we take from that psychedelic experience and tell our idea of death what's going on?
um, so is that like a new suggestion? Are you saying that people haven't tried
Well,
that or they
yeah, it's
have
kind
tried
of
it
a new
and then
suggestion. Yeah, it's kind of a new suggestion, right? You're disentangling. Why can I never think of that friggin' word? Um,
unblending?
you Yes, yes. So you're unblending from this spiritual experience. And the other part of the psyche that you're reaching is the one that's fear of death. You're still back here. But it's these two parts of yourself that are now talking to each other.
Okay. So suppose that happens, then what?
Well, what do you surmise from that? What example might you give us, or something either from experience yourself, in what you've seen in other people, um, or how you deliberately go at picking that psychedelic experience and being able to get to that state where two parts of the psyche are talking to each other. I just had this psychedelic experience, man. I really saw my own immortality in that. Uh, I'm really no longer afraid of my physical death.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
so,
I've read lots of case reports that sound exactly like the example you've just given. People struggling with, with a cancer diagnoses that are struggling with existential anxiety. Like that's a common thing that they would report after a psychedelic experience.
yeah. So you your psychedelic experienced body now. This is the body that has just had the spiritual experience. You've still got an objective distance to these 2 points. And in the one blended personality, you've had this marvelous spiritual experience. In this other blended personality, you have the fear of death. And now they need to communicate. You're the controlling factor, the third person, so to speak, the objective distance that you have in being able to get these two parts of yourself to talk to each other.
Okay, I mean, you could frame it that way.
I'm
Uh,
convinced that death will be a non-event. And unless I get run over or something like that. But basically, I'm gonna die. I'll shut my eyes and I won't breathe anymore. Um, and I've accepted completely that that's not a problem for me. Right? I don't, I've had this spiritual experience. I know that what step death is in the progress of my life. And without needing to share it, I have this knowledge, this gnosis, we could say, right?
okay, I'm not doubting your, I'm not
Yeah,
doubting you.
but I didn't mean to be too dramatic there, but because in confronting this fear of death, I have this body, and death is going to talk back now. Death is going to say to my spiritual experience, but the body still doesn't want to die. The body's afraid.
Sure.
You may have conquered it here, but the body's afraid.
And
I'm trying to get
well,
you to respond. I'm trying to provoke you a little bit.
um, yeah, I don't know what to say to that. Like it's it's something I struggle with. It's something I think everyone struggles with. Even if you have these psychedelic experiences and you have partially immunized yourself to the fear of death, I think it still lingers.
Yes, I don't think there's any escape from it. Anybody that tells you otherwise is a bullshit artist.
Yeah.
Um, because there are those that want to be.